My stepdaughter's mom withheld her meds and filmed her panic attacks, so we put her in jail. 2 years later, she walked into my daughter's sweet 16 party, acting like nothing happened. When did someone's jealousy turn them into a monster? I knew I was in trouble when my 12-year-old stepdaughter Emma started asking for permission to hug me. After her parents divorced, Emma started living with me and her dad, and for the past 2 years we've built this amazing relationship, where she'd run to me after school excited to tell me about her day. She called me mama, and always said I made the best mac and cheese even though it was literally from a box. Everything changed after her mom, Linda, got dumped by her boyfriend. Suddenly, Emma started coming home from weekend visits acting different. She'd pull away when I tried to hug her and ask weird questions like, "Do you actually love me, or do you just love daddy?" I thought it was normal preteen stuff until Emma mentioned her dad had cheated on her mom with me, which wasn't true. Linda cheated, and her dad and I met a year later. Linda then started calling during our movie nights, claiming Emma needed to talk to her right that second. She'd keep Emma on the phone for hours talking about loyalty and how real families stick together. It hurt that right after those calls, Emma began asking permission to hug me like something was wrong. When Linda discovered I'd gotten Emma into therapy for her anxiety, she twisted it completely, saying I thought Emma was broken and needed fixing. But the worst came when I found out Linda had been withholding Emma's anxiety medication during her weekend visits, then taking her to crowded, overwhelming places. Emma would have massive panic attacks, and Linda would film them. She called me crying one Saturday after sending me these videos saying, "Look what your parenting has done to my daughter." If putting a child through that wasn't enough, Linda accidentally left Emma at a soccer game one time. I got a call from Emma sobbing, asking me to pick her up. When I arrived, Emma threw herself into my arms shaking, and Linda showed up right after screaming at me in front of all the other parents about how I'd stolen her daughter's loyalty. Emma was clinging to me terrified while Linda yelled that I was manipulating her child. She also twisted Emma's therapy progress notes to make it look like I was experimenting on her. When Emma was diagnosed with ADHD, Linda claimed I was medicating her to make her compliant. She edited recordings of me patiently explaining things to Emma to make me sound controlling. I realized I needed to prepare Emma for what was coming, so I taught her breathing techniques for her anxiety, and her and my husband made a memory book of our favorite times together. But one night, Emma started having nightmares about being taken away from me, and her therapist was helping her process the trauma Linda was causing. I constantly reassured her that would never happen, but everything exploded when Linda showed up to school pickup claiming that I was unstable and obsessed with Emma. She even used my struggle with infertility against me, saying I was desperate for a child and therefore untrustworthy. She then told me to prepare for the court case. Linda's lawyer came out swinging on the first day of court, presenting Linda's doctored videos that made me sound controlling and claimed I was grooming Emma to choose me over her real mother. They showed the judge Emma's drawings that included me and the family, and said I'd forced her to draw them. Linda actually sat there nodding like everything was completely normal. But when our lawyer cross-examined Linda, she fell apart completely. When asked why she'd withheld Emma's medication, Linda claimed she was protecting her daughter from unnecessary substances. When pressed about filming Emma's panic attacks, she said she was documenting the abuse. The judge kept raising his eyebrows at her answers, and I could tell he wasn't buying any of it. Linda got so flustered she started rambling about how step-parents shouldn't have rights, and how I was stealing what belonged to her. The judge called for a break when our lawyer was done and said he wanted to hear from Emma directly, since this whole case was supposedly about what was best for her. Our lawyer had prepared Emma for this possibility, but so had Linda. She had been coaching her about what to say if she had to testify. That night, Emma barely touched her dinner. She kept asking if she would get in trouble for what she said tomorrow. Terry and I both told her to just tell the truth about how she felt, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. The next morning, Emma put on her favorite dress, the purple one with butterflies. She held my hand walking into the courthouse, but I could feel her trembling. Linda was already there staring at us like we were criminals. When they called Emma to testify, my heart was pounding. This 11-year-old kid held my entire future in her hands. Whatever she said would decide if I got to keep being her mama, or if Linda won. Emma walked to the front looking so small. The judge smiled at her and told her she wasn't in trouble, that he just wanted to hear her side of things. Emma nodded and gripped the sides of her chair, and then she started talking. Emma looked at the judge and took a deep breath. Her small hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white from the pressure. Then she told him everything. She explained how her mom told her to say I made her feel scared even though it wasn't true. Her voice wavered slightly as she spoke, but she kept going. She talked about the medication, and how her mom wouldn't give it to her on visits. How she'd hide the pills and say Emma didn't need them, that they were making her weak. She described the panic attacks at crowded places, and how her mom filmed them instead of helping, holding up her phone while Emma gasped for air, telling her to show everyone how upset you are. The whole courtroom was silent. You could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Linda's face went from confident to shocked to angry, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the wooden table. Her lawyer kept trying to object, but the judge shut him down with sharp waves of his hand. Emma kept going, her voice growing stronger with each word. She said she loved her mom, but her mom was doing scary things. That she felt safe with me and dad, but her mom made her feel bad about it, always saying things like, "They're not your real family," and "blood is thicker than water." When Emma talked about the soccer game, describing how her mother had screamed at her from the sidelines, Linda actually stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Her lawyer had to pull her back down, whispering urgently in her ear. Emma's voice got shaky, but she kept talking. She said her mom told her I would leave once things got hard, that I didn't really love her, that I was just pretending to make her dad happy. But Emma said she knew that wasn't true because I was still there even with all the bad stuff happening, even when her mom made their lives miserable. The judge thanked Emma and she came back to sit with us. Her butterfly dress rustled as she walked, the same dress she'd worn to her spring concert. I wanted to hug her so bad but knew I couldn't in court. Terry squeezed her hand and whispered that she did great. I could see tears in his eyes that he was trying to blink away. Linda's lawyer tried to argue that we'd coached Emma, that we'd manipulated her testimony, fed her lines to say. He stood up dramatically, gesturing with his hands, but the judge wasn't having it. He said Emma's testimony matched the evidence we'd presented. The real therapy notes that showed Linda had been lying about Emma's progress, the medication records proving she hadn't been giving Emma her anxiety medication, the witness statements from the soccer game, including one from the referee who'd had to stop the game because of Linda's behavior. The judge made his ruling right there. He said Linda's behavior was harmful to Emma, that she'd deliberately caused distress to her daughter to win a custody battle, putting her own desires above her child's well-being. He ordered supervised visits only. Linda would have to complete counseling before any unsupervised time could be considered. His voice was stern, leaving no room for interpretation. Linda lost it. She started screaming that this wasn't over, that she'd never stop fighting for her daughter. Her voice echoed off the courtroom walls. Security had to escort her out while she yelled about corruption and how we'd bought off the judge. Her heels clicked frantically on the marble floor as they led her away. Emma was shaking when we left the courthouse. The October air was crisp, but she was sweating. She kept asking if her mom would come take her. We assured her that couldn't happen now. The judge's order was clear and legally binding, but I could see she didn't fully believe us, her eyes darting around the parking lot as if expecting her mother to jump out from behind a car. That night, Emma slept in our bed. She had nightmares and woke up crying twice, calling out for me in the darkness. Terry and I took turns comforting her, rubbing her back and reminding her she was safe. By morning, we were all exhausted but relieved it was over. The sun streaming through our bedroom windows felt like hope, except it wasn't over. Not even close. 3 days later, I got a call from Emma's school. It was a Thursday morning and I was in a meeting at work. The secretary sounded confused and slightly alarmed. She said Emma's mom was there saying she needed to speak to Emma urgently. Something about a family emergency involving Linda's mother. But the secretary remembered the court stuff and wanted to check with us first. I could hear commotion in the background. I told her absolutely not. Linda wasn't allowed unsupervised contact. The secretary said she'd handle it, but I could hear Linda yelling in the background, her voice getting louder and more aggressive. I grabbed my keys and drove to the school, running 2 yellow lights on the way. By the time I got there, Linda was gone. The principal, Mr. Harrison, said she'd threatened to call the police before finally leaving. He was visibly shaken, adjusting his tie nervously. He assured me they had the court order on file and wouldn't release Emma to her under any circumstances. But I could see the staff was shaken up. The secretary's hands were trembling as she filed papers. Emma heard about it from a friend who'd seen the commotion from their classroom window. She spent the rest of the day in the nurse's office with a stomach ache that was clearly anxiety. When I picked her up, she asked if we could move somewhere her mom couldn't find them. Maybe to another state, she suggested hopefully. It broke my heart to see her so scared. I started documenting everything meticulously. Every time Linda showed up somewhere she shouldn't be. Every phone call to the school. Every violation of the court order. I bought a special notebook just for this purpose. Our lawyer said to keep detailed records in case we needed them later. To note dates, times, witnesses, everything. The supervised visits were a disaster from the start. Linda was supposed to see Emma at a family center with a social worker present. The building smelled like disinfectant and had that institutional feeling that made everyone uncomfortable. The first visit, Emma came back saying her mom had whispered things when the social worker wasn't looking. Stuff about how I'd abandon her when things got tough, how her dad would choose me over her if he had to, how stepmothers in fairy tales were evil for a reason. The social worker, a young woman named Patricia, said she hadn't noticed anything concerning, but Emma was clearly upset, her face pale and drawn. She started having anxiety attacks the night before visits. She'd beg not to go, clinging to my arm, but the court order said she had to. We had no choice. Linda figured out our routine pretty quick. She must have been following us or had someone watching. She started showing up places. The grocery store where we shopped every Saturday morning. The park where Emma liked to read under the big oak tree. Emma's soccer practice at the community field. Always staying just far enough away that it wasn't technically violating the restraining order. But we saw her. Emma saw her. She'd be there in her car, watching, sometimes taking pictures with her phone. Other parents at soccer started asking questions. They'd heard about the court case from the incident at the game that had started all this. Now they saw Linda lurking around practices, sitting in her silver sedan at the far end of the parking lot. Some of them gave me sympathetic looks. Others whispered when I walked by, probably sharing gossip about our family drama. Emma quit soccer 2 weeks later, said she didn't like it anymore, that it wasn't fun. But I knew it was because she was scared her mom would cause another scene. She loved soccer, had been playing since she was 6, had trophies on her dresser and posters of her favorite players on her walls. But Linda had ruined that too. Then Linda enlisted help from her family. Her sister Danielle started calling the school with complaints. Said she was concerned about Emma's welfare, that she'd noticed bruises when she saw her at the grocery store. There were no bruises. Emma hadn't even scraped her knee in months, but the school had to investigate every complaint. A social worker came to our house on a Tuesday afternoon. Emma had to show them her arms and legs, lifting her sleeves and pant legs while a stranger examined her. Answer questions about if anyone hurt her, if she felt safe, if she had enough to eat. She was humiliated, her cheeks burning red. The social worker found nothing concerning, but the damage was done. Emma felt like everyone was watching her, judging our family. She started wearing long sleeves even when it was warm. Linda's mom Judith got involved next. She was a severe woman who'd always disapproved of Terry's remarriage. She started showing up at Emma's choir concerts and school plays. She'd sit in the front row and stare at me with cold eyes. When Emma saw her, she'd forget her lines or miss her cue, her voice faltering mid-song. Her teacher asked if everything was okay at home, concerned about Emma's sudden stage fright. I tried to stay calm for Emma, but inside I was falling apart. I wasn't sleeping, lying awake listening for cars driving by slowly. Wasn't eating much, my clothes starting to hang loose. Terry and I started arguing about what to do. He wanted to move, start fresh somewhere new where Linda couldn't find us. But I didn't want to uproot Emma from her school and friends. She'd already lost so much. her best friend Sophia, her soccer team, her sense of security. The supervised visits got worse each week. Linda would spend the whole hour telling Emma how much she missed her, how empty her house was without her, how she cried every night looking at Emma's empty bedroom. Emma would come home feeling guilty and confused, asking if it was her fault her mom was sad. The social worker said it wasn't technically inappropriate, but we could see what Linda was doing. Emotional manipulation disguised as love. One day I was at work when my boss called me into his office. He closed the door behind me, which was never a good sign. He said someone had called claiming I was neglecting a child, that I left her home alone and didn't feed her properly, that I spent all the family's money on myself. He knew it was bullshit, but said he had to document the complaint for HR. I knew it was Linda. She was trying to get me fired, to prove I couldn't provide for Emma. I started taking time off work to deal with everything, following up with lawyers, meeting with school officials, driving Emma to extra therapy appointments with Dr. Martinez, who was trying to help her process everything. My boss was understanding, but I could see his patience wearing thin. My coworkers had to cover for me constantly. Emma's grades started slipping dramatically. She couldn't focus in class, staring out windows instead of at her textbooks. Her teacher called a meeting to discuss her performance, said Emma seemed distracted and anxious, wasn't turning in homework, asked if there were problems at home. I tried to explain without going into too much detail, but it was humiliating sitting in those tiny chairs meant for children, discussing our family's private struggles. Linda found out about the meeting. She'd been calling the school pretending to be me, using information she'd gathered to sound convincing. She showed up at the meeting uninvited, bursting through the door dramatically, started talking about how Emma's problems proved I was a bad influence. The principal had to ask her to leave, but she'd already made her point. The damage was done. Emma was mortified. She'd been sitting in the hallway waiting for us to finish, doing homework on a bench. She heard her mom yelling through the thin walls, saw the other parents staring as they picked up their kids. She didn't want to go back to school the next day, said everyone would be talking about her crazy family, and she was probably right. I realized Linda was creating chaos on purpose, making Emma's life unstable so she could point to the instability as proof I was bad for her. It was sick, using her own daughter as a weapon in her war against us. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in November. Linda had figured out our after-school routine down to the minute. She knew I picked Emma up at 3:15, knew we usually stopped at the park on nice days so Emma could play while I caught up on emails. She was waiting for us by the swings. Emma saw her first. She grabbed my hand and tried to pull me back to the car, her eyes wide with panic. But Linda was already approaching, walking purposefully across the playground. She had this fake concerned look on her face, the one she used to fool people who didn't know better. Started asking Emma if she was okay, if she needed anything, if she wanted to come home with her real mom where she belonged. I told Linda to leave, that she was violating the court order by being within 100 feet of us. She said she was just a concerned mother checking on her child, that any good mother would do the same, that I wouldn't understand because I wasn't Emma's real mother. Other parents were watching. Some had their phones out, probably recording the confrontation. Emma was crying, tears streaming down her face, begging her mom to leave. Linda kept saying she just wanted to help, that she could see Emma was suffering, that she could fix everything if Emma would just come with her. She reached for Emma's arm, her fingers grasping. That's when Emma snapped. She screamed at her mom to leave her alone, said she was scared of her, that she was mean and crazy and ruined everything good in her life. The whole park went silent. Even the kids on the playground stopped playing to stare. Linda's face changed instantly. The fake concern disappeared like a mask falling off. She looked at me with pure hatred, her eyes narrowing to slits, said this was my fault, that I'd turned her daughter against her, that I'd pay for this. Then she left, but not before spitting on the ground near my feet. Emma cried the whole way home, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She kept apologizing for yelling, said she didn't mean to be bad, that she shouldn't have said those things. I told her she wasn't bad, that she had every right to be upset, that sometimes telling the truth meant saying hard things. But she just kept crying, curled up in the back seat. That night, Terry and I made a decision. We couldn't keep living like this. Emma couldn't keep living like this. The constant fear, the anxiety, the disruption to her life. We called our lawyer and said we needed an emergency hearing. The harassment had to stop before it destroyed Emma completely. Our lawyer filed the next day. We included everything. The school visits documented by the principal, the false complaints to my employer and CPS, the stalking incidents with photos of her car, the witness statements from the park, including a video one parent had taken. We asked for a complete termination of Linda's visitation rights until she completed serious mental health treatment. Linda's response was immediate and vicious. She started calling the house non-stop, leaving voicemails about how we couldn't keep her from her daughter, how she'd never give up, how we'd regret crossing her. Terry had to change our number, which meant updating it everywhere and explaining to people why. But Linda found other ways. She created fake social media accounts to message Emma, telling her she was a bad daughter, that she'd regret choosing me, that blood was forever and I'd leave eventually when I got tired of playing mommy. We had to monitor all of Emma's online activity, checking her messages daily. Emma stopped wanting to leave the house entirely. She was scared of running into her mom, scared of another scene. She'd have panic attacks just thinking about going to the store. Her therapist increased her sessions to twice a week and started her on a new anxiety medication. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. 2 weeks felt like forever when every day brought new stress. Linda ramped up her behavior. She started driving by our house at all hours, not stopping, just driving by slowly enough for us to see her. Emma saw her one night when she got up for water and didn't sleep for 2 days after. I was at my breaking point. I wasn't eating, surviving on coffee and crackers. Wasn't sleeping, jumping at every sound. Snapped at Terry over little things like leaving dishes in the sink. He was struggling too, dark circles under his eyes. We were both trying to protect Emma but felt like we were failing. Linda was winning by making our lives miserable. Then something shifted. Emma asked to talk to us one night after dinner. She said she was tired of being scared, tired of her mom controlling their lives. She wanted to fight back, not in a mean way, but by telling the truth about everything, by standing up for herself and our family. We helped Emma write a letter to the judge. She detailed every incident in her own words, every threat, every manipulation, how her mom made her feel worthless and scared, what she wanted for her future, to feel safe, to be happy, to not wake up afraid. It was heartbreaking to read but also showed how strong Emma was becoming. The night before the emergency hearing, Linda made one last play. She called Terry's parents, his sweet elderly parents who lived 3 states away and had health problems of their own. Told them I was abusing their granddaughter, that Terry was enabling it, that they needed to intervene before something terrible happened. They called Terry confused and worried, his mother crying. Terry had to explain everything to them over speakerphone. They were horrified. Not at us, but at Linda. They offered to fly out for the hearing despite his father's recent hip surgery, to testify about what good parents we were. Terry cried after that call. His parents had never seen him cry, not even during the divorce when Linda had been at her worst. The morning of the hearing, Emma wore her butterfly dress again. She said it was her brave dress now. She held both our hands walking in, her grip firm and determined. Linda was already there with her lawyer. She looked confident, like she knew she'd win. She'd styled her hair and worn a conservative suit, playing the part of the concerned mother. But she didn't know about Emma's letter, didn't know about all the documentation we'd gathered, didn't know that 3 of Emma's teachers had written statements about Linda's disruptive behavior, didn't know the social worker from the supervised visits had filed concerns about Linda's mental state, didn't know we had security footage from several locations showing her stalking us. Our lawyer presented everything methodically, the phone records showing hundreds of calls, the false complaints with documentation proving they were lies, the stalking incidents with photos and videos, the witness statements from teachers, parents, and family friends, and finally Emma's letter. The judge read it carefully. His expression got more serious with each page. Linda's lawyer tried to argue we'd influenced Emma, that we'd coached her to say these things, but the judge asked Linda directly about each incident, asked her to explain her behavior. Linda couldn't. She kept saying she was just being a concerned mother, that we'd understand if Emma was really ours, that biology created bonds that couldn't be replicated. That comment made the judge's eyebrows shoot up. He asked Linda if she thought step-parents couldn't really love children. Linda went on a rant about how biology mattered, how I'd never understand a real mother's love, how Emma would realize that eventually and come back to her. She actually said that love wasn't enough, that DNA was what mattered. The judge had heard enough. He revoked Linda's visitation rights completely, said she needed a full psychological evaluation before any contact could be considered, extended the restraining order to include Emma's school and all activities, made it clear that any violation would result in jail time. His voice was firm and final. Linda stood up and screamed that this wasn't over, that she'd never stop fighting, that Emma was hers and always would be. Security moved toward her, but her lawyer grabbed her arm and dragged her out. You could hear her yelling all the way down the hall about justice and motherhood and corruption. Emma was shaking but smiling. She asked if it was really over, if her mom couldn't bother us anymore. We said yes. The judge had made it clear. Linda had to stay away or face serious consequences, including imprisonment. We went for ice cream after. Emma got chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. She laughed for the first time in months. Really laughed. Not the fake laugh she'd been doing to make us feel better. Terry and I just watched her be a kid again, licking her cone and getting ice cream on her nose. That night, Emma slept through without nightmares. She woke up and asked if she could have friends over that weekend for a sleepover. She hadn't wanted friends over in months, too scared her mom might show up and embarrass her, but now she felt safe again. Life slowly got back to normal. Emma started playing soccer again, tentatively at first, but then with her old enthusiasm. Her grades improved dramatically. She stopped asking permission for everything, started hugging me without hesitation, running to greet me after school. The old Emma came back, piece by piece. But Linda wasn't done. She just got sneakier about it. About a month after the hearing, things seemed quiet. Too quiet. Emma was doing better, back to her old self mostly. She'd started hanging out with her friend Sophia again and even joined the school play. I should have known Linda was planning something. The first sign was a letter from a lawyer. Not Linda's usual lawyer, but some new guy from a fancy firm downtown. They were requesting Emma's medical records for a review of treatment necessity. Terry called our lawyer, who said to ignore it. They had no legal right to those records anymore. Then Emma's school called about a strange woman asking questions about Emma's attendance. The woman claimed to be from a child welfare organization doing a study on divorced families. But when the principal asked for credentials, she left quickly. The description matched Linda's sister Danielle. I started noticing cars following me to work. Different cars, but always staying 3 or 4 cars back. When I'd change lanes, they'd change lanes. When I'd pull into a parking lot, they'd drive past slowly. I got paranoid and started taking different routes every day. Emma mentioned her grandmother Judith had been texting her. I didn't even know she had Emma's number. The text seemed innocent enough, just asking how school was and if she needed anything. But it felt wrong. We blocked the number, but new ones kept popping up. Terry's work started getting calls too. Anonymous complaints about him leaving early to deal with family drama. Someone reported him for using company resources for personal legal matters. His boss knew it was harassment, but still had to document everything. The stress was getting to him bad. Then Linda found a loophole. She couldn't contact Emma directly, but she started writing letters to Emma's teachers. Long, rambling things about how she was concerned for her daughter's education, how she wanted to be involved as any good mother would. The teachers had to forward them to the principal, who filed them away, but it was disruptive. One teacher, Mrs. Peterson, actually seemed sympathetic to Linda. She started making comments to Emma about how hard it must be without her real mom. Asked if she missed her mother. Emma came home upset, saying Mrs. Peterson made her feel guilty. We had to request Emma be moved to a different class. The breaking point came when Linda somehow got herself appointed as a volunteer for the school library. The school didn't realize who she was because she used her maiden name on the application. She'd be there every Tuesday and Thursday, just happening to be shelving books near Emma's classroom. Emma saw her one day when her class went to check out books. She froze completely, couldn't move or speak. Her friend had to get the teacher, who called me immediately. By the time I got there, Linda was gone, but Emma was in the nurse's office having a full panic attack. The principal was mortified when he realized what happened. He immediately banned Linda from school property permanently, but the damage was done. Emma was terrified to go to school again, started faking sick every morning. Her anxiety was worse than ever. We went back to court for another emergency hearing. This time we asked for criminal charges: stalking, harassment, violation of a restraining order. Our lawyer said Linda was escalating and it would only get worse. The judge agreed and issued a warrant for her arrest, but Linda disappeared. Her house was empty when the police went to serve the warrant. Her sister claimed not to know where she was. Her mother said the same thing. Terry hired a private investigator to find her, but she'd covered her tracks well. For 2 weeks we lived in fear. Every car that drove by could be her. Every unknown number that called could be her. Emma slept in our room every night. We installed security cameras and an alarm system. Terry took time off work to be home when Emma got out of school. Then she made a mistake. She used her credit card at a motel about 2 hours away. The private investigator found her and called the police. They arrested her in the motel parking lot. She had notebooks full of our schedules, printed photos of Emma, and detailed plans for taking her daughter back. At the criminal trial, Linda represented herself. Big mistake. She ranted about mother's rights and biological bonds, said the court was corrupt for keeping her from her child, claimed I'd brainwashed everyone including the judge. The prosecutor just let her talk. She buried herself with every word. She got 6 months in jail and 3 years probation. The judge made it clear any violation would mean serious prison time. Linda screamed as they led her away in handcuffs, said she'd never give up on her daughter, that Emma would come back to her eventually. Emma watched the news coverage at home. She seemed relieved but also sad. Said she wished her mom could just be normal, that she missed the mom she used to have before everything went crazy. We told her it was okay to feel both things, relief and grief. While Linda was in jail, we had 6 months of peace. Real peace. Emma thrived without the constant fear. She made new friends, got straight A's, even won a science fair prize for her project on anxiety in teenagers. She was seeing her therapist less and less. I legally adopted Emma during those 6 months. Linda couldn't contest it from jail. The day it was finalized, Emma asked if she could call me Mom instead of Mama. Said Mama felt like a little kid name and she was growing up. I ugly cried right there in the courthouse. We thought maybe jail would make Linda realize she needed help, that she'd get therapy and medication and come out better. Terry even said maybe someday they could have some kind of relationship if Linda got healthy. We were naive. Linda got out on a Tuesday. By Thursday, she was already violating probation. She showed up at Emma's middle school graduation, sat in the back wearing sunglasses and a hat like that would fool anyone. Emma saw her during the ceremony and almost didn't walk across the stage. Security removed Linda before the ceremony ended, but she'd made her point. She was back and wasn't going to stop. Her probation officer issued a warning, but that was it. One warning for traumatizing her daughter at what should have been a happy milestone. Emma started high school that fall on edge. She joined the drama club but quit after Linda showed up to auditions pretending to be a parent volunteer. She tried out for basketball but stopped when she saw Linda's car in the parking lot during tryouts. Every activity became a risk. We went back to court again, and again, and again. Each time Linda would get a slap on the wrist, a fine, extended probation, more conditions she'd immediately violate. The system kept giving her chances and she kept taking them. Meanwhile, Emma suffered. By sophomore year, Emma was done being scared. She got angry instead, started confronting Linda when she showed up places, told her to get help, to leave them alone, to stop ruining her life. Linda would cry and say she just loved her daughter, that she couldn't help it. One day, Emma snapped completely. Linda showed up at her Sweet 16 party at a restaurant, just walked in like she'd been invited, started taking pictures and telling people she was Emma's mother, acting like nothing was wrong, like the restraining order didn't exist. Emma stood up in front of everyone, her friends, our family, even kids from school she barely knew. She told Linda she was done, that Linda wasn't her mother anymore, that I was her real mom because I actually cared about her happiness, that Linda only cared about winning. She said Linda had stolen her childhood with her craziness, made her scared of her own shadow, ruined soccer and school plays and normal kid stuff, but she wasn't going to let her steal anything else. She was done being a victim, done letting Linda control her life with fear. Then Emma called the police herself, reported the restraining order violation, sat there eating cake while we waited for them to arrive. When they arrested Linda again, Emma didn't even look up from her conversation with her friends, just kept laughing and being a teenager. That was the turning point. Linda finally went to real prison, 18 months for repeated violations. The judge said she was a danger to her daughter's mental health, that she'd show no ability to control herself or respect the law. Linda didn't scream this time, just stared at Emma with this broken look. Emma felt guilty at first, said maybe she'd been too harsh, but her therapist helped her understand she'd just protected herself, that she had every right to be angry, that choosing her own well-being wasn't selfish. It was necessary and brave. We used those 18 months to really heal. Emma got her driver's license and a part-time job at a bookstore. Started dating a nice kid named Marcus from her chemistry class. Applied to colleges without looking over her shoulder. Normal teenage stuff that felt like miracles to us. She decided to write her college essay about overcoming family trauma, about learning that DNA doesn't make a parent, that love is shown through actions, not biology, about how her stepmom became her real mom by just being there. I cried reading it. Terry cried too. Linda got out the week before Emma's high school graduation. We were ready this time, had plans in place, security at the ceremony, orders filed in advance. Emma said she wasn't going to let her mother take this from her too. She'd earned this moment. But Linda didn't show up, didn't violate the order. We found out later she'd checked herself into a psychiatric facility, finally admitted she needed help. Said losing Emma had broken something in her, but prison made her realize she'd broken it herself. Emma didn't want to visit her. Said maybe someday when she was older, when the wounds weren't so fresh, but not now. Not when she was just starting to feel normal. We respected that. Healing happens on your own timeline, not anyone else's. Emma's going to college next fall. Got into her first choice with a partial scholarship. She wants to study psychology. Says maybe she can help kids going through what she went through. Turn her pain into purpose. We're so proud we could burst. Last week we were cleaning out her room, packing stuff for college. Found the old memory book we'd made during the worst of it. Emma flipped through it and smiled. Said it reminded her how far we'd come, how we'd survived Linda's war against our family. She added new pages. Photos from prom and graduation, her acceptance letter, pictures of us just being normal and happy. At the end she wrote, "My real family," and drew hearts around it. Simple but perfect. Terry and I are planning a vacation for after we drop Emma at college. First real vacation in years. Somewhere quiet where we can sleep in and not worry about crazy ex-wives or court dates or protecting anyone. Just be a normal couple for a while. Emma says we deserve it. Says we saved her life by fighting for her. By not giving up when Linda made everything hell. By showing her what real love looks like. Patient and steady and unconditional. Not demanding or controlling or conditional on DNA. Sometimes I think about Linda. Wonder if she's really getting help or just biding her time. But mostly I don't. She stole enough of our peace. She doesn't get to steal more. We won. Not because we destroyed her, but because we survived her. Emma's our daughter. Has been since she started calling me mama at 9 years old. Linda tried to use biology as a weapon, but love won. The real kind. The kind that shows up every day even when it's hard. The kind that fights for what's right. The kind that builds a family. So yeah, that's how someone's jealousy turned them into a monster. How a mother's obsession with ownership almost destroyed her daughter. How we fought back with truth and love and documentation. How Emma chose her real family, and we chose her right back. She leaves for college in 3 months. I'm going to cry like a baby. Terry too, probably. But they'll be happy tears. Proud tears. We made it tears. Our little family survived and thrived despite someone's best efforts to tear us apart. And that's the best revenge of all. Living well, being happy, moving forward. Linda wanted to destroy us, but only destroyed herself. We wanted to protect Emma and ended up building something beautiful. A real family based on love, not just DNA. Emma still asks permission sometimes. Old habits die hard. But then she catches herself and laughs. Hugs me without asking. Calls me mom like it's the most natural thing in the world. Because it is. Because that's what I am. Her mom who fought for her and won.